Hi, let's continue with section 7.6, analyzing and graphing f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So to recall what we learned in our last section, 7.5, we talked a lot about that vertex or standard form where we have f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Well, if we're given standard form or general form, we can still produce the same graph. We have two options to work with. So let's learn in the section. One of them is by completing the square to get it back into, that's supposed to be an equal sign, into that vertex form. Or we can keep it in general form and start by finding our vertex. And we do that by that formula, negative b over 2a. And we'll talk about that more in this section. So first in our list, we have completing the square. By completing the square, I'm able to get into that vertex form so that I can move forward and finish our problem. So let's graph f of x equals x squared minus 6. That's supposed to be an x plus 4. Okay, so let's start off by completing the square. So I want to group my values of the x. I have x squared minus 6x. And it's your call. You can leave that 4 there or just move it to the side. Now we want to complete the square. Remember your formula for completing the square is b divided by 2 squared. My b is negative 6. So that I have negative 6 divided by 2 squared. That gives me negative 3 squared, which is 9. So I'm going to go ahead and add 9 to both sides. Or instead of writing 9 on the other side, you can just write a minus 9. So plus and minus 9. Now the whole purpose of this is so that we can complete the square with this perfect square trinomial. So that factors to be x, and it's always number before you square, minus 3 squared. And then I have negative 4 minus 9 minus 5. We have completed the square. Now why do we do this? We do this because we can easily pick out our vertex. What is our vertex? We have a negative 3 and a negative 5. So that means our vertex is positive 3 and negative 5. Remember, for the h is always different sign. Our line of symmetry is x equals h. My h is 3. And because we have our parabola opens up, we have a minimum value of negative 5. And something we need to add is that maybe step 0, it opens up. So I know our parabola is going to look this way. Okay, let's plot some pieces that we just found. So I have 3 down 5. And I know it's going to open up, and then I have a vertical line that splits my parabola. The axis symmetry at x equals 3. Okay, let's plot some points. Let's pick a point and let's plug it into our formula. Let's pick a point. Why don't we pick a point that is 1 away? So I can pick 4 or I can pick 2. Let's pick the smaller one. Let's find f of 2. And you can plug it into your original function or your new reduced formula or standard form. They're both the same. They're just presented differently. So I'm going to use our new one. So we have 2 minus 3 squared minus 5. You get negative 1 squared minus 5. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So I have the point 2 and negative 4. 2 down 4, I have the point right here. And so it matches up on this side as well. Now they're 1 apart from the vertex. That's what we're using as our guide. Now we can go ahead and draw our U-shaped figure. There we have it. Now let's do some more examples as well. Let's do some more examples. Now, when A is not 1, it's slightly different. So let's go ahead and work with our x's only. Let's just leave the other number on the side. So I have plus 13 that we're ignoring for a second. And we're going to go ahead and factor the leading number, which is 3. So I have x squared plus, and then 12 divided by 3 is 4x. And our goal is to add a something. And then we're going to subtract a something and counter it off. All right, my formula for computing the square is b divided by 2 squared. My b is 4. 4 divided by 2 squared is 2 squared, and 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add a 4, but because I'm in the house, I have to ask my parents. 3 times 4, we get 12, and then I subtract 12. All right, let's go ahead and factor. So we have f of x is equal to 3 quantity squared. Now it's always a number before you square it, so I have x plus 2, and then 13 minus 12 is 1. So there we have it. All right, our vertex, we have a 2 for our h and a k for our 1. Remember the h changes sign, so our vertex is -2 and a +1. Our axis symmetry is x equals your h, so -2. Now our parabola, we don't have a negative in the beginning. There is no negative, so I know my parabola opens up. So we're going to have a minimum value, and our minimum is our k, which is 1. So let's plot these important points we found. We have -1, -2 up 1, that's our vertex. And then we have an axis symmetry going along our vertex. And we have x is equal to -2. Now we go ahead and use 1 point to guide us to finish the problem. Let's go ahead and use the next one over. Let's test -1. Let's find f of -1. So that we have 3 times -1 plus 2 squared plus 1. We get 3 times 1 squared plus 1. 3 times 1 plus 1, we get 4. So at the value -1, I get 4. -1 up 4. Now that's 1 away from the vertex, so 1 away from the vertex, I have that matching y value. All right, let's go ahead and connect our points to create that U-shaped figure. And there we have our parabola. Let's do one more. But instead of graphing, I'm asking that you simply write it in vertex form. All right, so same idea. We have f of x is equal, let's go ahead and group our x's together, -2x squared plus 10x minus 7. And let's go ahead and try to complete the square using our x's. Now we have to factor out our leading number. So I have -2. So that I have x squared. 10 divided by -2 is -5x. And then we're going to add a number. And then we have minus 7. We're going to, since we added it, now we subtract. So it's plus and minus. So we're going to add and subtract. That way we don't lose the balance of our equation. All right, let's go ahead and complete the square. So to complete the square, we need that formula b divided by 2 squared. My b is 5, so that I have 5 divided -5 divided by 2. If we square it, we get 25 divided by 2. So I have 25 divided by 2, and because it's a baby and it's asked his mom if it can go out, 25 over 2 times -2, well the 2's just cancel, we get -25. Let's finish it off. So we have f of x is equal to negative 2. It's always a number before you square, so I have x minus 5 over 2 squared, and negative 7 minus negative 25, so it's a plus. You get plus 18. So this is our standard form. Now, what if we don't want to write it in standard form? What if it's not given and we don't want to go to the trouble of completing the square? In such case, we can use our vertex formula. The vertex of a parabola given by f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c is negative b over 2a. And then once we get that answer, we're going to plug it in to get our k. Because that was our h. And we need an h comma k. The line of symmetry is always your h value. So your line of symmetry is negative b over 2a. All right, another important piece of any graph is its intercepts. Make sure you find the intercepts of your given parabola. For the x-intercept, let all y's be 0. For your y-intercept, let all of the x's be 0. So let's go ahead and graph x squared minus 2x minus 2 and label the intercepts. Now, it's not in a way where I can easily pick out the vertex, and I don't want to complete the square. So let's go ahead and use our vertex formula. So above, we see it's negative b divided by 2 and a. Our a is 1, our b is negative 2, and our c is negative 2. All right, let's go ahead and calculate that. So I get negative, my b is negative 2, divided by 2 times your a, which is 1. So I get positive 2 divided by 2, you get 1. So out of our vertex, h comma k, you just found your h. Our h is 1. Now to find the k, you just plug in that value in. So we want to find f of 1. Let's plug in the 1. So I get 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 2. We get 1 squared is 1, minus 2 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1, minus 2 we get negative 3. And that right there is our k. All right. So now let's go ahead and label our y-intercept. This is my favorite because it's always your c. If you don't trust me, you can work it out. F of 0, y is equal to 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 2. You get y is negative 2. So we have a y-intercept at 0, negative 2. Now if you want to find your x-intercept, you can try factoring. This one is not factorable, so you can go ahead and have to use quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and find our quadratic formula. It's x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. All right, let's go ahead and work it out. So I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 2 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And so we get 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 8 all over 2. 2 plus or minus the square root of 12 all over 2. Now 12 is made up by 3 times 4, and I can take the square root of 4. So I have 2 square root of 3. So I have 2 plus or minus 2 root 3 over 2. Those 2's divide out. So that we're left with x is equal to 1 plus square root of 3, and 1 minus square root of 3. So that gives us, we need to find that out. So we have to use our calculator. The square root of 3 plus 1, we get 3.7. 1 minus the square root of 3, we get negative 0.7. And those are x-intercepts. So let's go ahead and graph them. So we said our vertex here is 1, negative 3. Our line of symmetry is x equals 1. Our parabola is going to open up. So because of that, we're going to have a minimum value. So we have a minimum at negative 3. All right, let's plot our vertex at 1 down 3. Let's graph our axis of symmetry at x equals 1. We have our y-intercept. We have a y-intercept at negative 2. And really, I have enough to graph it because I know I can reflect that point over 1 over. But we also have our x-intercepts at 3.7 and negative 0.7. And there we have it. That is our parabola. That's it for section 7.6. Make sure to go to My Lab and Mastering to complete your homework. Thank you.